was a pretty disappointing loss to the Lakers in the end. It was definitely a winnable game for the Raptors. I know they're missing players. I know players are out with injuries, but it felt like a game that was certainly one the Raptors were capable of winning. And they kept it close for the majority of the game. Like, it was constantly, like, going back and forth. Maybe the Raptors were down a bit, but they were, like, within touching distance. But the Lakers started to pull away the further you got and ended up winning by 17 points in the end. And it's just concerning that something so simple is still causing the Raptors such a big problem. It's like really something that should like bother like a high school team, maybe like a college team. But the fact that we are this far into the season and the Raptors still have no reliable way to break down a zone defense is extraordinarily alarming and concerning. And look, when we go to like the team stats from this game, the Raptors didn't shoot the ball well. 42% from the field, 22% from three. That's a problem. Like 22% from three, that is just going to automatically give you problems with a zone defense. Going 7 of 32 from three. The outside shooting is oftentimes what can break down a zone defense and stop teams from employing a zone defense against you for sure. But the inability to break it down at all is again, very, very alarming. Like, there are still some fine individual performances. Scottie Barnes, 22 points. Brandon Ingram, 19 points. Roy Boyles, again, solid as ever as he's been. Mamukilishvili, 20 points. But second half, I mean, throughout the entire game, the Lakers were consistently going to that zone defense, and the Raptors didn't know what to do there. Oftentimes, the simplest way to break down a zone defense is like I just said there, is to hit your threes. But for a Raptors team that is, I think they might be, I should check this, but I think they're bottom in NBA three-point percentage as far as teams are concerned. I'll try to pull up the stats on that right now. But if anything, they are a very bad three-point shooting team. So automatically teams will look towards zone defenses because, three-point percentages are typically what breaks down zone defenses. And yes, indeed, the Raptors, wow. We literally do have the worst three-point percentage in the entire NBA this season at 33.6. So obviously the Raptors are not a good three-point shooting team. In fact, they are the worst three-point shooting team. So when you don't have that reliable outside game to break down these zone defenses, and players like Emmanuel Quickley should be contributing to that, and they're not. Quickley got 9 points against the Lakers there, and part of the reason was the inability to break down that zone defense. When you don't have that, what you need to look to do constantly is to find players in the high post. Now, that can prove to be more difficult in certain instances. For a lot of the game, it was like a 2-3 zone for the Lakers, where there's two players up top, three players down low, the high post just above the three-point line. That's where you're going to find spaces to break down that zone defenses. That's where you want the ball in Scottie Barnes' hand. You get the ball into that position, that player's got to turn immediately and face the basket. If players converge, there are kick-out opportunities, or players cutting to the rim. There's Colin Murray Boyles in the dunker spot. If players don't converge, leave them open. Scottie Barnes is a wide-open jump shot, top of the key, or top of the paint, and that's when I'm very happy for him to take on. He's wide open in those positions. That is where you break down zone defenses. But for so much of this game against the Los Angeles Lakers, they just didn't have any. They weren't at least displaying any way of doing that. Like they would try to flash Murray Boyles or Scottie Barnes up into that spot I'm describing there, but it was so consistently just a little bit late on the timing of getting that pass in there. And again, it just kind of it just kind of felt like there was confusion on how the Raptors were going to break this down, how the Raptors were going to overcome this zone defense against the Lakers. And you might say, oh, it's one game where it didn't work out. The Lakers played good defense, and sure, we can give some credit to the Lakers for that. But how about a couple of games ago against the Indiana Pacers, where the Raptors, look, they won by 14 points. They led by a lot in this game. They led by, I think they led by 32 or 33 at one point in this game. But there were periods in the fourth quarter where the Pacers made it seem like the Raptors were going to blow this lead. The Pacers were going to come back. It got to at least a 4-point game at one point. It may have even gotten less than that. The Raptors led throughout, but it got like dicey at one point in the clutch. And the reason why it got dicey was that the Raptors could not score against a zone defense. Like, could not score against a zone defense. And it was a huge run by the Indiana Pacers because the Raptors could not score. Now, what got the Raptors out of that mess was a Jamal Shed 3 and then back-to-back Brandon Ingram 3s. 3 threes that, like, weren't terrific shots. It was just they dropped. And that was, like, the only way they were able to overcome that defense. Like, it wasn't as if they found ways to break down the zone defense. They finally hit like an uptick in variance on three-point shooting and got some tough shots to fall from the outside. If it wasn't for that, the Raptors very well might have lost the game. But, they hit the shots. Jamal Shed hit a big shot. Brandon Ingram, good player. Obviously, decent three-point shooter. Hit a couple big threes. And that's all true. The Raptors got a lead back. The Pacers kind of tires got deflated. And the Raptors ended up running away with it, winning by that margin in the end. But the fact that it was a reliance on these really tough three-point shots, that was how the Raptors were able to win this game in the end. It's alarming. Like, there were stretches against the Clippers where they couldn't score, but in particular, the fact that they still don't know what to do against his own defense is troublesome. And it's troublesome because any team who has done any homework whatsoever scouting the Raptors will look at that and say, well, this is what we're going to do against them. And I don't know what the Raptors are going to do to adapt and just all of a sudden start to fix this because, like, how are we over 40 games? We're over halfway into the season and coaching has still not addressed the plays here and drilled these plays in where we're able to comfortably break down zone defense. Like, it really should be comfortable for an NBA team to break down zone defenses like this, but the Raptors have not been able to do so. There needs to be a big emphasis on getting that ball into the high post in the center part of the zone. That is where you're going to be able to break defenses down. You want the ball in Scotty Barnes' hands so he can make decisions there. You need to work on better actions from the outside to give people more of a runway. Like, they're trying to get people runways to get to the rim and make decisions there. But, like, they're not even getting to, like, the first part of any successful action, and then it's messy and they're throwing up tough shots. It absolutely needs to be better, and it's just a definite problem that we're entering this really tough phase of the schedule where we're on, like I said, this West Coast road trip. They already lost to the Lakers. Now they have to deal with Golden State, Sacramento, Portland, and Oklahoma in the space of 5 days, and they have to do this with these teams knowing what to do against them. They're just going to throw out zone defenses, and the Raptors will have to hopefully have figured something out by then. Golden State probably have enough to make it a problem. Sacramento, like, probably should be a win, but, I mean, who knows at this point with the way things have been going for the Raptors. In what has been, like, quite a good run in this tougher part of the schedule. The Raptors very much looked the part of a good team, but if they can't address this simple issue, again, I just don't see why every team playing against them wouldn't bring this type of defense and just say, like, if you're not gonna hit shots from three, we are gonna play zone and you're not gonna beat us. And if the Raptors can't find an uptick in three-point shooting, I don't know how they're gonna win these games because it should just be simple on defense for these teams. So what I hope has been worked on since the Lakers game ahead of the Golden State game, plays to run against the zone. How are we going to do this? Because they are tough. Look, it's a tough part of the schedule, but, like, it's winnable games against all three of these teams coming up. Maybe not Oklahoma in the final game of the West Coast road trip, but, like, you can certainly beat Golden State, Sacramento, Portland. You've already beaten Golden State and Portland this season. Let's see what the Raptors have conjured up and brought up to fix this, but the simple defensive scheme being a problem should not exist here for the Raptors at all, let alone this deep into the season.